Hey everyone, my name is Jay Thomas in Professor Banfield's Monday, Wednesday Intercultural Communications course, and this is my Microculture Share and Tell presentation. Before I get started, I just wanted to delve quickly into, the precursor of the topic of this video, which is music. Music is super important to me in my whole entire life. Most of the reasons why I'm even in this class, even though this isn't a music class, have to do with music. I see music as a very important form of communication for everyone, one that literally almost every single human being engages in actively, and that is the microculture that I'm going to be sharing today. DJing, which is an art form that's been around for like 30, 35, 40 years now in a lot of different forms. So you might be wondering, what makes DJing a microculture? Well, I can tell you for sure that I'm very, very familiar with a lot of the beliefs and values and behaviors that go into the microculture. So I actually first was exposed to DJing when I first went to school in Boston, and when I was there, I just joined it as a hobby. Like, some friends had me join, and I was interested in the music as a fan. I would go, see concerts, and it was like a cool thing for me. But as I started to learn how to DJ, and some of my friends at school taught me how to DJ, and I picked it up very quickly, and I love anything that has to do with music performances. So, when I saw like the power of DJing, and like not only did I see the effect that DJs have on the crowds, but as a fan, being in the crowd itself and being able to see, at that time it was almost like magic was happening on stage, because you just see them like pushing buttons or turning knobs, and it just seems like you don't know what's going on. And so when you start to learn and get an appreciation for what DJing actually is, you start to realize how in-depth of a culture that's really sits behind it. If you go to a festival, or if you go to a concert, for the most part, you'll find a very receptive audience. You'll find a very receptive just atmosphere on the whole. Everyone's there to have a good time. No one's there to have fights or anything like that. It's a culture of love. It's a culture of spreading love. It's a culture of peace and unity. It's a culture of being against hate, really, and just being accepting on the whole. It's very known for coming out of like sort of the underground disco scene, coming out of a lot of like gay clubs, which at that time there wasn't nearly as much tolerance for the LGBT community as there is today. But the thing is, that community is the community that, because they were forced to really push a whole entire message of love in order to have everyone be accepting of their community, they were, it was almost like a hand-in-hand thing that worked really, great with DJing, great with dance music, the dance floor, the vibe and the atmosphere, and just like, the whole entire world that DJs create. Another, I guess you could call it behavior that's pretty commonplace amongst DJs, which is drug use, sometimes abuse. There's always alcohol around, there's typically marijuana around, there's typically, depending where you're DJing, going to be things like cocaine and other harder drugs around. When the average person thinks about like parties, they definitely think about drug use, but for someone who's been inside of that scene, and I've seen a lot of sober ravers, and I've seen people who have in fact used the music as a means of getting themselves away from drug abuse and using it as sort of like a healing thing. And the community is great too, because you have a huge support system of people around. So drug use is definitely like another big sort of like commonplace behavior that happens. Is that everyone is very giving too. Everyone is very willing to help, willing to pick up everything. And when you're on drugs or whatever, like, people are just like very like loose and and whatever, like willing to do whatever. And that may be true, but at the end of the day, I think that the important thing to take away is that it's all love. A lot of like DJing, a lot of like music is about having different perspectives. And, a lot of people, when they think of DJs, they think of that DJ that they had at their or wedding they might have been to, or maybe their bar mitzvah, or maybe like a Sweet 16 type DJ, or DJs that are like at the at a barbecue or at this function or event or that. And there's a big difference between DJing as a service versus DJing as an art form. And I'm obviously talking about DJing as an art form. A lot of DJs who DJ as an art form, they can be annoyed like playing at clubs where people are coming up to them requesting songs and doing things like that, and affecting essentially their ability to take their audience on that journey that they pictured, and that it's like you want them to have trust in you. And so I guess another big factor within the DJ culture is that trust in the DJ, is that belief that that DJ is going to take you on that trip. There's been a lot of money and revenue come in through this industry, and as a result, some of the art form gets lost. And so, as far as values, there are a lot of conflicting values within the culture right now. Because the culture is not purely clearly defined yet, it's still growing, it's always changing. And as it's being exposed to different parts of the world, I know, for example, like, I got involved in it here when it was like super, super big in Europe, which it still is. But like in Asia, it really wasn't that present like of 3, 4, 5 years ago. As it started to become more prevalent there, now that you have new movements, you have new producers that are coming from different cultural backgrounds, that use different instruments, that use maybe different themes in their music and things like that, that are all sort of like adding and changing some of the behaviors and values that you might find traditionally in the DJ culture as it's being exposed globally. The DJ community is very collectivistic, it's very family oriented, it's very like, come and be a part of what we're doing, and we'll take care of you. And they're the fans that are part of the culture, but then there's also the DJs themselves. And as far as like characteristics for the DJs, you'll notice that I'm in a basement right now, and we have some like good equipment here and all that. I would say like 90 to 99% of all my friends who are DJs operate out of a basement unless they've made it. And I have a few friends who have made it big, and they're in LA playing shows and all that, or globally touring and whatnot. So. It's funny because like the imagery changes so quickly from this basement imagery, which is like can be dreary and can be a little bit it can affect your confidence levels if you're in here for too long or whatever. But it's sort of like these are the hurdles that up and coming DJs have to face in order to make it, and so like it requires a lot of resilience, a lot of belief in oneself to really believe that yes, like I can take and even imagination to sit there and to construct music and to imagine that this is what it's going to be like for all the thousands of people that I'm going to play this for when I actually get up on stage. There's like a sort of a genetic aspect there too. I was honestly thinking about what are some of the genetic traits that you might find within the DJ culture, and it might not be in some people's genetics. Like their hearing might not be, they might not be able to understand pitch and tone like someone else might be able to. Like those differences in like hearing quality and like there's a lot of genetics behind that. And some people are just gifted with the right genetics to be able to be great DJs. They'll never ever miss a beat. They're able to, and like the big thing about DJing is you need to have a great memory, because a DJ is pretty much like, as a DJ, I am a product of all of the music that I have in my DJ library. Like I have all my music, and like those are all my tools that are in my toolbox, and so I need to have a very, very, very great understanding of every single tool that I have. I need to know every song that is in my library front to back. I need to know what happens at every single second, because when I'm in my mix and I'm mixing and I think like, all right now it's time to bring in this 30-second section, I need to have such like a good enough memory to remember it's in that song, I need to pull it out of there, and then I need to put it over here. So memory is also like a very, very, very important factor when it comes to DJing. As far as being completely separate from the dominant culture, I always felt like, with DJs, like, or at least with the music that I listen to and that I DJ, it's not so much focused upon things like, if you think about like a hook. I work with a lot of like rappers and vocalists, and like we'll be trying to like write songs, and we'll be trying to figure out what's catchy, what's going to be catchy for our audience to sing along to, and that's what's important in the dominant culture. In the dominant culture, dominant culture of music, it's all about like what can I like sing along to, right, or what can I bop my head to, but it's mainly like what can I sing, what few words can I sing along to, and that, I think, is definitely not nearly as important in the DJ culture, where it's literally way more about, well, what music am I listening to? What beat is there? And what type of energy and what kind of vibrations am I getting from that music? And like, how is that making me feel? How is that making me move? As opposed to what is that making me say? If you're going to be involved in this scene, for the most part, you kind of have to be automatically at odds with the dominant culture. Typically, like for hours for a DJ, you go on, you start around 10, 11, 12, 12 a.m. and you'll be on playing all night. Typically at a time when everyone else is going to be sleeping. Your office hours happen when the sun is down and not up, right? Which is like a massive difference from, I guess, the routine that people, working class people are typically going to have. And that's why a lot of them It's just hard for them to be able to even be a part of this scene if you're going to be acclimated and assimilated with the dominant culture. If you're going to be going to work Monday to Friday from 9 to 5 or whatever, it becomes difficult to immerse yourself within the DJ microculture. The communication pattern most often exhibited, I guess, or like very prevalent within the DJ microculture in comparison or as opposed to the dominant culture is that I find that there's definitely like a lot of like reliance on body language. Obviously, because when you think about it, like when you're at a show or just when you're around the music is literally so loud that you can't even typically be able to talk to people who are around you, right? So it's like a lot of it is based off of body language. This is dance culture. It's dance music. It's about moving your body. It started off in Chicago, and since then it's been building up and building up and building up. It became huge in Europe in the 90s, in Amsterdam and Berlin especially, the techno environments. They really cultivated the scene. In the US, the market is super saturated right now, and obviously in Europe it is as well. And lately, in the last few years, it's found its way over to Asia. It's been huge in India, like completely massive. It's been big in Japan. It's big in Korea, especially. And it's just sort of like taking the whole entire world by force. Latin America is also like massive presence in Brazil. And the cool thing is that, again, I was alluding to this earlier, as people from different cultures sort of like become exposed to an electronic way of musical expression, there are all these different influences as far as like, different sounds, different instruments, and just different themes of music that, they take the culture and they twist it into like a new form and a new like genre and a new like just like part of the community that makes the community stronger and more rich. Well, I'm sure I could talk about music and DJing literally all day and night. I could be up here doing that forever. In conclusion, this has been my presentation on the microculture of DJing, which is I'm very happy to see DJing be way more of an accepted culture, microculture, honestly. It's something that literally, like, I used to have arguments about, how big I thought it was going to be, especially, like, a lot of, like, relatives in India who just didn't see, like, the movement like I saw it, and to see it actually coming to fruition, I think is just awesome. And it continues to provide me and all my friends inspiration to continue to develop this culture. It's awesome to be a part of a culture that you literally know that you have a hand in developing that culture and changing it and making it better. And I think that that's what the DJ microculture stands for, and that's what it's all about. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope you are able to get exposed to the microculture in your own way. Thank you.